NASCAR is a sport where luck plays a larger role than most, and as a result, NASCAR drivers have grown to be incredibly superstitious. After all, nobody wants to be the next victim of a phantom debris caution, a blown engine, or being Denny Hamlin during the playoffs. So in today's video, we'll be breaking down some of the most bizarre superstitions in the NASCAR garage. Some of these superstitions are so popular they've lasted NASCAR's entire history, so let's get to it. And that includes our first topic, green cars. This superstition goes all the way back to 1920, nearly 30 years before the founding of NASCAR, when Gaston Chevrolet, hey, that name sounds familiar, I wonder what company his family founded, was killed in a racing accident driving a green car. Since then, the racing world at large has avoided green cars whenever possible. Unless a sponsor says, yeah, our logo is green, so you better drive this green car if you want this green money. This superstition began to wear off starting in the mid-80s when Darrell Waltrip and Harry Gant began tearing things up, both in their green-sponsored race cars. Although, in more recent decades, green has struck back, cursing those who forgot about its tainted legacy. You know what green sponsor has been a partner of Kevin Harvick's for well over a decade now? Hunt Brothers Pizza. You know what sponsor Kevin Harvick has never won with in the Cup Series? Hunt Brothers Pizza. Jeff Gordon would very briefly drive this green Nicorette car in the back half of the 2000s, and despite being one of the coolest looking schemes I've ever seen, it's most notable for being the color of the car when Jeff suffered his Las Vegas crash that severely hindered him in his last few years of competition. And green also has one of the most notorious drivers of the 2010s, Danica Patrick. Though that might be more dumb luck than bad luck. But what's truly the most ironic thing about this superstition is that Brett Bodine was gift-wrapped one of the luckiest wins of all time at North Wilkesboro in 1990, driving a green car. In case you're out of the loop, he won his only race ever due to a scoring issue. It doesn't get much luckier than that. So maybe green is more of a bad rap than it truly deserves. Although, our next unlucky item also revolves around the color green, and that's $50 bills. Now personally, if I were handed an old Ulysses S. Grant, yeah, I had to Google that, what about it? I wouldn't consider it all that unlucky. But I guess when you're a multimillionaire driving a race car, your standards for luck kind of change a little bit. Similar to how the green car stigma started, this originates from Joe Weatherly's fatal crash, where it was later discovered that he had two $50 bills in his pocket. Geez, Joe, if you had just broken these down to 520s, you'd still be with us. Funny that nobody decided to blame red cars for the crash, though. I guess if you crossed a color off the list every time somebody got killed, everybody would just be driving transparent race cars nowadays. One firm believer in this superstition was none other than Dale Earnhardt. According to Tony Stewart, this one piece of currency may have been the only thing on planet Earth that could actually scare the Intimidator. And, well, Tony can probably tell the story better than I can.
He goes, after the national anthem, he goes, take this $50 bill down to Dale. He said, wait till he gets in the car though, don't do it when he's outside the car. So I went to hand that thing inside there, and Richard Childress clotheslined. And Dale Sr. couldn't suck back in the seat any further than he already was. Like he had a panic look on his face. And that is the same day that Kenny Irwin and I had our big scrap, and that changed everything for me as well, like, not in a great way. And I literally almost got a lady fired from Joe Gibbs Racing for putting $50 bills in my per diem.
But moving on to our next topic, in the spirit of spooky season, we can't forget about racing under a full moon. It's long been theorized that a full moon brings the crazy out in some people, and NASCAR drivers are no different. Specifically, this one applies more to local short track racing, which commonly happens on Saturday nights. You know, bum and gray type stuff. Though, to be fair, I don't think the phase of the moon makes that place any more or less crazy. And short track racing is naturally more chaotic than most forms of racing, so maybe when it happens under a full moon, it's just confirmation bias. But hey, if it strengthens the argument for more night races, I'm all for it. A full moon may just be the remedy the next-gen car needs for short tracks. On that note, another commonly unlucky thing is the number 13, and of course that translates into racing as well. In last week's video, you may recall how the most notable number 13 car in NASCAR history was actually banned after only a handful of starts. In fact, across NASCAR's 75-year history, the number 13 car has only one win with Johnny Rutherford in 1963. But even then, that win has a bit of an asterisk next to it, because this win was actually one of the Duel at Daytona qualifying races prior to the 500. Yes, way back in the day, these races were actually run for points, and those wins counted just as much as any other win did. So while a win's a win, by today's standards, we wouldn't even count this. This also makes 13 statistically the worst performing number of the first 34 numbers, which are the most commonly used ones across the series. Generally, the higher you go, the less common the numbers become. And of the first 24 numbers, this is the only number not being run full-time in the 2023 season. Okay, green cars, $50 bills, the number 13, these are all reasonable enough fears, I think. But why the heck are peanuts considered bad luck? The origins of this superstition are a bit fuzzier than others. There is an urban legend that one driver died at a local short track and the only thing found inside his car was the leftover peanut shells. But Joseph Shelton from the Bleacher Report proposed a different theory, stating that teams actually used to work on their cars underneath the grandstands, and peanut shells would commonly slip through the cracks and into the important parts of the car, causing mechanical failures among other issues. I've even heard some local short track drivers go as far to avoid eating peanut butter before the day of the race. So that about covers most of the common bad superstitions, but what about some of the lucky ones? Well, did you know that Kyle Larson always races with a small ladybug sticker on his car? This also originates from the aforementioned Johnny Rutherford, who seems to have a good track record when it comes to these things. Apparently, the morning of the 1980 Indy 500, a ladybug landed on him and he took it as a sign of good luck. He would of course go on to win his third and final Indy 500 later that day. Kyle Larson's father Mike was apparently very fond of this story and decided to start putting ladybug stickers on Larson's car when he was a kid. Larson has continued this tradition himself and still puts a ladybug sticker on all of his Cup Series cars till this day. It's incredibly small and usually is placed on the driver's name over the door, and honestly, I had not even noticed this until now. The man, the myth, the legend, Sterling Marlin would attempt to create his own good luck charm in the 90s. According to Marlin, he ate the exact same meal of a fried bologna sandwich prior to both of his Daytona 500 victories in 1994 and 1995. Marlin reportedly ate the same sandwich again in 1996 to try and pull off the elusive Daytona three-peat, but his luck finally ran out as he would go on to finish 40th. Okay, personal good luck charms are one thing, but why does it seem like every driver always grows a playoff beard? What's the deal with that? Although if we're ranking them, Blaney definitely has the best. Though we should all be intently watching Christopher Bell this weekend to see how well he does as the lone babyface. Well, most drivers believe that a beard protects them from bad luck, as in 1936, racer George McKenzie died in a fatal accident right after shaving. Alright, so if there's one takeaway from this video, it should be that if you die in a car crash, then your death will be blamed on everything except what actually happened on the track itself. And perhaps the most well-known good luck charm of all would be Dale Earnhardt's Lucky Penny. Gifted to him the day of the 1998 Daytona 500 by Make-A-Wish child Wessa Miller, Earnhardt would glue the penny to the dashboard right before finally taking home the checkered flag in his 20th attempt at the Great American Race. But for one last bit of bad superstition, no place embodies it better than Talladega Superspeedway. In fact, many believe Talladega to be outright cursed, as Big Bill France ended up allegedly building the facility on haunted Native American burial grounds after failing to get the project started in numerous other locations. France first attempted to build the 2.66-mile superspeedway in Raleigh, North Carolina, but after failing to reach a deal with the locals, he would then try Atlanta and then Greenville, South Carolina to no avail. Apparently, the middle of nowhere Alabama was the best he was gonna get, which is what spurred the Indian burial ground rumor. Truthfully, there is zero documentation as to whether this was an actual ancient Indian site, but dang does it make for the basis of a good story, especially when you add stories on top of it like Bobby Isaacs. In August of 1973, he would retire so abruptly it would make Carl Edwards jealous. Earlier in the race, Isaac's good friend Larry Smith had been killed in a wreck. Oh yeah, back then that was just a normal thing, so of course they kept racing, why do you ask? Several laps later, Isaac said he heard a disembodied voice telling him that he needed to get out of the car, not yet knowing that his friend Larry had just been killed. When Isaac radioed to his crew, he only said, "Find somebody to fill the car. I've got to get out." And with no further elaboration, Isaac wouldn't run another race for the rest of the 1973 season. It sounds absurd, but given all the other wild and crazy stuff that happens at Talladega and only Talladega, maybe the place is cursed after all. But those are just a few of the craziest NASCAR superstitions. Which ones do you find the most interesting? Let me know in the comments down below, but don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more videos just like this one, and check out dailydownforce.com for more awesome NASCAR content.